I'm a taxi driver in Stockholm, and I've seen Americans cross the street like they're playing Frogger on expert mode. This one guy sprinted across an empty intersection at 11 p.m. because the light was red. No cars for 3 blocks either way. He stood there panting on the curb looking proud of himself, while 20 locals waited patiently at the crosswalk, staring at him like he'd just announced he doesn't recycle. In America, apparently, red lights are suggestions when there's no traffic. Last month in Tokyo, I'm working as a tour guide, and this couple from California darted across a major intersection mid-block because the hotel's right there. A grandmother actually gasped. 2 police officers materialized from nowhere and issued them a 5,000 yen fine each. The woman tried arguing that jaywalking wasn't real because it's a made-up word invented by car companies. The officer nodded politely, handed her the ticket, and said in perfect English that the fine was very real. She paid it. My cousin manages a cafe in Singapore near Orchard Road. An American tourist got fined $200 for crossing 15 meters from a marked crossing. He complained to my cousin that he was, basically, at the crosswalk. My cousin pointed out the window at the actual crosswalk, clearly visible and exactly 50 meters away as the law requires. The guy said that's basically the same spot, and American cops would never find someone for that. My cousin asked if American cops also accept, basically, as payment. They don't serve him anymore. I'm a traffic warden in Munich working the Marienplatz area, and Americans jaywalk past me constantly assuming I'm decorative. One woman crossed right in front of me against the signal, no cars coming, and seemed shocked when I wrote her a ticket. She said she's from New York where everyone jaywalks all the time. I explained this isn't New York. She asked what the fine was for if no cars were coming. I told her it's for ignoring the law, not for dodging cars. She said German efficiency is taking things too far. I said the fine was 10 euros and she could pay now or contest it in court. She paid. At a pharmacy counter in Seoul, I'm working the register, and an American asked me why Koreans stand at red lights when the street's empty. He'd been in Seoul 3 days and was already frustrated by waiting for permission to cross the street. I explained that's how traffic signals work. He said in America people use common sense instead of blindly following rules. I asked him how America's pedestrian fatality rate compared to Korea's. He didn't know. I pulled it up on my phone and showed him the difference. He said statistics don't mean anything. He jaywalked leaving the pharmacy and nearly got hit by a scooter he didn't see coming. He came back in looking pale and bought Band-Aid. I'm a hotel concierge in Zurich, and an American businessman staying here crossed the street against the light in front of the train station at 6 a.m. Not a single car in sight, just empty tram tracks. A police officer was standing exactly where he crossed and immediately stopped him. The man said he was just going to that cafe right there, like proximity justified breaking the law. The officer asked if he'd cross train tracks just because the cafe was close. The man said that's different because trains are dangerous. The officer wrote him a ticket for 40 francs and explained that teaching children to respect traffic signals requires adults to model that behavior, even at 6 a.m. with no traffic. The man told me later that Swiss people take rules way too seriously, and back home cops have real crime to deal with. I reminded him he was standing in one of the world's safest cities, and maybe their approach worked. He said that's just because Switzerland's small. I asked if he'd be paying the fine or taking it up with the Swiss legal system. He paid at the front desk before checkout. My brother runs a bookstore in Copenhagen across from Tivoli Gardens, and he's watched American tourists jaywalk past the Rathhusplatsen crosswalk for 15 years. Last week one couple crossed mid-block with a stroller and a Danish woman stopped them on the far curb to explain they just taught their baby to break traffic laws. The American mom said babies don't understand traffic laws. The Danish woman said that's why you model correct behavior from birth. The mom said they were literally 10 feet from the crosswalk. The Danish woman pointed to where they'd crossed and then to the actual crosswalk, which was clearly 40 meters away. The mom said Danish people are obsessed with following every little rule. The Danish woman asked if American parents also taught babies that laws are optional if you're close enough to where you're allowed to be. My brother said the American couple walked away muttering about European attitude. They jaywalked again, leaving his shop. I work security at Parliament House in Canberra, and an American on a tour crossed Commonwealth Avenue mid-block because he didn't feel like walking to the lights. A police officer was doing traffic management for a motorcade and stopped him immediately. The man said he looked both ways and it was safe. The officer explained that Australian law requires pedestrians to use marked crossings within 20 meters. The man said that's technically correct but unnecessarily strict. The officer asked if he'd prefer to explain that to a magistrate. The man said he was just trying to see the building. The officer said the building would still be there after he crossed legally. The fine was $76. The man asked if this was really necessary for something so minor. The officer said 70 pedestrians die annually in Australia from road incidents and rules exist to prevent that. The man paid the fine and crossed at the lights. He spent the rest of the tour complaining that Australia's become a nanny state. I'm working the ticket office at Wien Hauptbahnhof in Vienna, and an American missed his train because he jaywalked through the taxi stand instead of using the underpass. He ran across 4 lanes of active traffic and arrived at my window demanding to be put on the next train for free because your station design made me late. I asked how the station design was responsible. He said the underpass takes too long and there should be a direct crosswalk to the platforms. I explained that crossing active roadways at a train station would be suicidal, and that's why the underpass exists. He said in America they just put in a crosswalk with a light. I pointed out he'd just admitted to illegally crossing a dangerous roadway to save 90 seconds and wanted the station to reward that decision. He said I was missing the point. I asked what the point was. He said the point was he missed his train. I sold him a ticket for the next departure at full price. He said Austrian customer service was disappointingly rigid. I said Austrian traffic management keeps people alive. He's probably still jaywalking. I manage a ramen shop in Osaka near Dotonbori, and an American couple crossed 6 lanes of traffic mid-block to reach us during dinner rush. They walked in proud of themselves for finding a shortcut. I asked if they'd crossed at the pedestrian bridge. They said the bridge was too far. I pointed out the window at the bridge exactly 30 meters away. They said that's not far for walking, but it's far when you're hungry. A regular customer told them in English they'd just broken the law and disrespected everyone who uses crossings properly. The American man said Japan's jaywalking rules are excessive because Tokyo has way more crossings than necessary. The regular explained that's because Japan prioritizes pedestrian safety over convenience. The woman said they prioritized it too by looking carefully before crossing. The regular asked if they also saw the traffic camera that probably recorded them. They went pale. I told them cameras are mainly for enforcing vehicle laws, not pedestrian violations, but they spent the whole meal paranoid. They left a review saying our neighborhood has intimidating infrastructure. My sister works at a bakery in Amsterdam near Leidsplein, and she's watched American tourists jaywalk into the bike lane for a decade. Last month, an American man stepped directly in front of a cyclist who was doing maybe 30 kilometers per hour. The cyclist swerved, clipped the curb, and crashed into a parked bike rack. The American helped him up and said, "You came out of nowhere." The cyclist said he came out of the bike lane going straight at constant speed. The man said he didn't see him because he was checking for cars. The cyclist asked if he'd considered that bikes use bike lanes. The man said back home bikes share the road with cars, so he wasn't expecting a dedicated bike highway. The cyclist said that's why Amsterdam has infrastructure and America has pedestrian fatalities. The man offered to pay for damage. The cyclist's bike was fine, but he said the man should pay attention to where he walked. The man came into my sister's bakery complaining that cyclists in Amsterdam are aggressive and territorial. She asked what happened. He explained his version where the cyclist was going too fast and wasn't watching for pedestrians. She pointed to the clearly marked bike lane with its red pavement and bike symbols. He said those markings are easy to miss when you're looking at buildings. She suggested looking at the ground when crossing street. He said that's not how humans naturally move through space. She said humans naturally avoid getting hit by bike. He left without buying anything. I'm a bartender in Dublin near Trinity College, and American students constantly cross Dame Street wherever they feel like it because there's always a gap in traffic if you're quick. One American guy got stopped by Gardaí for crossing between two buses. He told the officer he timed it perfectly and was never in danger. The officer asked what would have happened if a motorcycle came through between the buses. The guy said he would have seen it. The officer said motorcycles can be quiet and fast and hidden behind larger vehicles. The guy said he checked carefully. The officer asked if he checked carefully enough to bet his life on it. The guy said he made it across safely, so clearly he checked enough. The officer issued him a fixed penalty notice for €40. The guy said Irish police must have quotas to fill if they're ticketing people for crossing street. The officer said there's no quota and he just watched someone nearly die by gambling they could predict traffic. The guy came into my pub and ranted that Irish cops harass tourists over nothing. I asked what happened. He said he crossed a street and got fined. I asked if he crossed at a crossing. He said no, but there was space. I asked if he thought police fine people for fun. He said they fine people for money. I pointed out the fine was €40 and processing it probably costs the state more than that. He didn't have a response. He jaywalked leaving the pub. I'm working a newsstand at Flinders Street Station in Melbourne, and an American tourist crossed the tram tracks mid-block because he didn't realize trams can't stop quickly. He stepped onto the tracks and a tram driver laid on the bell so hard I heard it inside my kiosk. The American jumped back onto the curb and yelled at the tram driver, who yelled back in Australian that crossings exist for a reason. The American came to my kiosk and said Melbourne drivers are really aggressive. I asked what happened. He said he was crossing and a tram almost hit him. I asked if he crossed at a tram stop or at a marked crossing. He said neither because both were kind of far away. I pointed to the tram stop literally 25 meters down the platform. He said that's exactly his point about them being far. I explained trams weigh 40 tons and can't swerve or stop on a dime. He said the driver should have seen him. I said the driver did see him, and that's why the driver used the bell and presumably braked. He said if it's so dangerous there should be barriers. I gestured to the painted tram tracks and multiple signs warning pedestrians to only cross at designated points. He said those aren't barriers. I said they're warnings for people capable of reading signs. He accused me of being sarcastic. I said I was being accurate. He left and I watched him cross the tracks illegally again 30 seconds later. My uncle drives a bus in Prague from Wenceslas Square to the Castle District, and he's nearly hit Americans jaywalking across Revoluckny Street about twice per month. Last week an American couple crossed mid-block, and he had to brake hard enough that standing passengers grabbed rails. He opened the door at the next stop and yelled at them in Czech. They stared blankly. A bilingual passenger translated that my uncle said they nearly caused injuries to 15 bus passengers. The American man said they looked and it was clear. The passenger translated. My uncle said in Czech that looking doesn't account for bus acceleration and mass. The passenger translated. The woman said they're from San Francisco, where buses share the road with everyone. The passenger translated. My uncle said in Czech that San Francisco buses probably don't weigh 18 tons fully loaded. The passenger translated. The man asked why Prague buses are so heavy. My uncle pulled away from the stop, shaking his head. The couple complained to a tourism office that Prague drivers are hostile to pedestrians. The tourism office pointed them to a map showing pedestrian crossings every 50 to 100 meters throughout the city center. They said that's still not enough. The office asked how many crossings would be enough. They didn't have an answer. I'm a porter at Frankfurt Airport helping with ground transportation, and an American executive ran across the airport approach road against the light because his taxi was waiting on the other side. A police officer stopped him and issued a citation for €10. The executive said he's going to miss his flight. The officer said he nearly got hit by an airport bus. The executive said he looked and saw space. The officer said he saw the bus brake and the driver gestured angrily. The executive said the driver overreacted. The officer asked if he understood that being right doesn't help when you're dead. The executive said this wouldn't happen in America because American infrastructure is designed better. The officer asked how many pedestrians America loses annually. The executive didn't know. The officer said Germany loses about 400 per year and America loses about 7,500 despite having only 4 times Germany's population. The executive said population density matters. The officer said Germany is more densely populated than America. The executive said these numbers are misleading without context. The officer said the context is standing in front of him holding a jaywalking ticket. The executive paid it and complained to me that German officers are unnecessarily pedantic. I asked what happened. He explained and positioned himself as a victim of bureaucratic overreach. I pointed out he'd admitted to running across an active roadway. He said the roadway wasn't that active. I gestured at the constant stream of buses, taxis, and shuttles. He said I was exaggerating. I suggested using crosswalks. He said that's not realistic at a major airport with time pressure. I asked if getting hit by a bus was more realistic. He told me German service workers are trained to be argumentative. I told him German service workers are trained to prevent customers from dying. I work retail at a shopping center in Reykjavik, and an American woman crossed the parking lot diagonally instead of using the pedestrian path because it was faster. A car nearly hit her. She came into my shop visibly angry and said Icelandic drivers don't watch for pedestrians. I asked what happened. She said she was walking to the store and a car almost hit her. I asked if she used the marked pedestrian walkway. She said she cut across because it's shorter. I pointed out the window at the clearly marked path with painted lines and signs. She said those are suggestions. I said they're traffic law. She said they're shopping center guidelines at most. I pulled up the Icelandic traffic regulations on my phone and showed her the section on pedestrian obligations in parking areas. She said that's taking things too seriously for a parking lot. I said the driver who almost hit her probably took it seriously. She said the driver was going too fast. I asked how she determined that. She said because they almost hit her. I suggested that she walked into the path unpredictably might be the reason. She said I was blaming the victim. I asked who the victim was in a scenario she created by ignoring the marked path. She left a review saying Icelandic retail staff side with aggressive drivers. I'm the victim here. I'm a police officer in Singapore patrolling Orchard Road, and I've written approximately 200 jaywalking citations to tourists this year alone. Last month an American man crossed 40 meters from the designated crossing and seemed genuinely shocked when I stopped him. He said he's been to 15 countries and never been fined for jaywalking before. I explained that Singapore enforces its laws consistently. He asked what the fine was. I said $200 Singapore dollars for a first offense, which converts to about 150 US dollars. He went pale. He asked if I was joking. I handed him the citation. He said this is entrapment. I asked how enforcing a clearly posted law constitutes entrapment. He said I was hiding and waiting for people to cross. I pointed at my uniform and said I was standing in full view under a streetlight. He asked if there's any way to reduce the fine. I said he could contest it in court. He said he's flying out tomorrow. I said he could pay now. He paid. He said America would never fine tourists this heavily for something so trivial. I reminded him that he's in Singapore, not America, and our pedestrian fatality rate is among the world's lowest specifically because we enforce these laws. He asked if I'm proud of creating a police state. I said I'm proud that people's grandparents make it home safely from the grocery store. He walked to the nearest crossing before leaving. The pattern's consistent across every country. Americans jaywalk assuming their judgment of traffic supersedes local law, then act shocked when enforcement happens. They're standing in some of the world's safest pedestrian environments, complaining they're too safe.